Welcome back to another episode of the Illuminated Path podcast. I'm your host, Liv, and I'm excited to introduce you to an amazing, beautiful creator. Her name is Jade Chung. And in today's episode, we're really going to dive into creativity through her Creatrix Method, which we'll learn a lot more about in the episode. But Jade is a mentor, an intuitive, a somatic practitioner, art therapist. She wears a number of different hats in her work. And she's really known for her radical work in weaving science-based body work with raw inner healing through principles of frequency, creativity, and expression. So as I mentioned, she's the founder of the Creatrix Method, a transformational method that blends nervous system rewiring, depth somatics, spinal energetics, which we'll talk about in our episode today, with soul work, ceremony, and arts. The method has initiated hundreds of women now, and she does private work, group spaces, retreats. She's actually heading to Bali next year as well. And she's on a mission to elevate the individual and collective consciousness through raw connection, truth, and love. I really enjoyed getting to connect with Jade, definitely similar wavelengths with this creatrix, and I'm excited to introduce you to her and her work. So let's dive in.
Welcome to the Illuminated Path podcast. I'm your host, Liv, founder of Eno Wellness Collective. My wellness journey started with yoga, which led me down the path of exploring healing modalities like meditation, breath work, sound healing, mindset work, and so much more. This exploration inspired my mission to help others find what lights them up. Get comfortable and curious as we learn from experts, teachers, and creators who are lighting up their communities and living an inspired, expansive life. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the show today, Jade. So nice to have you.
I am so excited to be here, Livia.
So I'm excited to get to know you today, to bring you into the ENA community. And I wanted to start off, we're definitely going to dive into your story and, how you came to do the work that you do. But I wanted to start off with asking you about the word creatrix, which obviously is a lot of the work that you do. So if you could start off with, just for those listening who are like, what is a creatrix? So can you share a little bit about that word and sort of how you came to use that in your business?
Yeah. So the creatrix. I'll start with a little story. So I was in meditation, as all ideas and divine downloads come through for me. I was in meditation maybe a year ago, and I had built up my business by then already, kind of under my name. My podcast at the time was called Creating from Soul. I was doing soul work. But yeah, I was in meditation one evening, and God kind of spoke to me. Higher consciousness spoke to me, and it just dropped in the word creatrix. It was like creatrix in like bold letters. I could see it in front of my eyes with my eyes closed. And I was like, oh, what is that? I've not heard that term before. And I decided to actually Google it at the time. And I found a couple of resources of people talking about what the creatrix is and started reading their resources. There's a woman called Lucy Pierce who I admire deeply, and she has written a book called The Creatrix, She Who Makes. So I started doing like research, learning about this word creatrix. And as I was doing this research, I started like steeping into it, kind of in my own frequency. So the creatrix, I share this story because it's kind of become a mission that I feel like I'm on to really birth this world and this word to women on this planet. So to me, the creatrix, when I really feel into the word, the term, the energy, it's the divine feminine who births worlds. It's the creator of the matrix, but it's the feminine energy of it, right? We talk about conscious creating, being the conscious creator of your life, of your reality. But to understand it from the womb, to understand it from the feminine energy that leads all consciousness, to understand it from when we think about void space and how all creation comes from a place of void, how all creation, you could argue, comes from destruction, right? The ebbs and flows of life. The void is fertile. The void is where creation happens. And so I'm on a mission with bringing the creatrix to life as a way to bring creation back into the woman. How can we tap deeper into the energy of what it means to be creative, to be regenerative as a female feminine body and how we can use that energy to consciously weave the fabric of our lives. How can you be the creator of your matrix? And not in a masculine way. Everyone holds masculine and feminine, but in specifically, yeah, from that divine feminine place.
Beautiful. Totally resonate with the creatrix energy. I think I came across the word creatrix while learning a little bit about like feminine archetypes. I think that came up in one of the workshops that I did related to that. I
Interesting.
have always felt connected to that word since I had seen it. And so when we obviously connected about doing the podcast and saw the work that you did, I was like, yes, we need to dive into this. And I love the way that it comes through too. Like also with a lot of programs I've had or things I've done, the name sometimes comes through crystal clear in some type of, meditative way. And then it's like really I love that you use that word steeping of like really getting it into yourself and your body and making it your own.
Yeah.
I'm excited to dive into this creatrix energy today, but I'm really curious to have you take us back to. I know you consider yourself a spiritual entrepreneur, and you're
Yeah.
bringing this creatrix mission to the world through your offerings. But I'm assuming that the road to this has been an interesting one. So I would love to know just like how what your past life, what you were doing before but when it comes to
Mm.
like work and creation, and then how it's kind of evolved into the creatrix world now.
Yeah. It's so funny because I feel like, as you kind of implied, all of us on this spiritual or like wellness entrepreneurship journey, we all come from interesting backgrounds, each of us carrying our own. So for me, I was actually an art dealer in my past life. I laugh because it's such a different world. And sometimes I think about it and I'm like, it's a different lifetime. Yeah, I was working in art galleries and corporate art galleries. I was selling art. Art has always been a really big part of my life. And it still is a big anchor and pillar of the work that I now do with my clients, expressive arts, using creativity, therefore, creatrix creation. But yeah, I kind of came into a version of the work that I do now about 5 years ago. Is the classic story of COVID pandemic hit. I was working a job that I really didn't like. I was feeling very disconnected from my body, very disconnected from purpose, just very disconnected from everything. I was numbing out with alcohol, drugs, being outside of just myself in all of the ways, you name it. And essentially, the company that I was working for went under. And it was kind of this opportunity for me to really step back and really look at my life and be like, what am I here to do? What do I really want to do with my life? Who am I really? That was enter the first dark night of my soul. And I took about half a year off there to begin meditation, really go on this personal development journey for the first time, really deep, really, really deep for the first time in my life. And that's when I started listening to Jay Shetty and like learning about Joe Dispenza, all the classic things. And it was for the first time through meditation as well, where I had the download. It was the same voice that spoke to me who told me creatrix. But back then it dropped in and it said art therapy. At the time I was like, what the fuck is art therapy? Hope I'm allowed to swear.
Yes, you are as well.
Okay, beautiful. I just said that. It just came out. Yeah, it was a voice that said art therapy. You should check out art therapy. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to listen to this new thing that I'm now tuned into called my intuition, which I didn't understand was intuition at the time. I was like, this voice is speaking to me. Okay. So anyway, long story short, I end up doing a degree in art therapy, became an art therapist. I was living in Hong Kong at the time with my family through COVID. And mental health and spiritual health is not so much a conversation just yet in places like Hong Kong, where I grew up. And so it was, I think, at that time as a new therapist, as a new person in this realm, it was hard for me to hold. It was hard for me to hold that discrepancy or what felt like discrepancy. Ended up moving to Vancouver, which is where I now live. And when I moved to Vancouver, really made a commitment to myself to work on my business and to really essentially like reinvent myself and like really come home to like okay, now I have the freedom and the sovereignty to wear different identities to really try on a new expression. And so that was 2 years ago. Through that journey, there has been a lot of deprogramming and deconditioning that I've had to do around really learning how to be a spiritual entrepreneur who is embodied in her spiritual work, who is in integrity with her truth, really learning how to create my own matrix within the framework of entrepreneurship, which can be a very masculine and rigid thing if you're not cautious and careful about, right? It's like the first year that I moved to Vancouver, I was working 15-hour days. I'd come into this work so that I could have time and financial and location freedom, but I found myself in another cage where I was like, I gotta make the money. I gotta do the thing. I gotta go, 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 go. And so the past year or two has been a huge journey of really, like I said, deprogramming a lot of those structures. And that now I think is also what informs a huge part of what I do with my clients, right? So talking about the divine feminine energy and talking about what it means to actually create your own matrix from a place of your own truth outside of the standards, expectations, values, belief systems that are not yours, that we adopt naturally as we grow up. Can we unlayer those and come back to heart and create a life that feels good and feels true and feels embodied? And now with the work that I do, it's a lot of somatic work. It's a lot of nervous system rewiring on a very, very deep, raw level. I bring in a lot of full work and spiritual work as well, ceremonial work, weaving that all in. That's kind of my journey in terms of how we've got to the Creatrix.
Yes. We actually have some similar timelines in terms of, when
Yeah.
we both started our businesses during COVID or around that time in 2020 and just going through moving different locations. Now I'm here based in Guam, but I was living in Amsterdam for a bit.
Ah.
Even though that connection of the words spiritual and entrepreneur together is really, there's so much learning and deconditioning, like you said, and just unlearning and creating a business that feels really embodied. And especially in this, this type of work, it's like being able to walk your walk as well, right? And like have your practices. And that is like a huge part of balancing the doing, right? And then the being of the feminine too.
It's huge. And I think it's really easy to get swept up in, when you work for yourself in the milestones and the successes and the like, how do we up level? How do we expand? How do we expand? How do we keep going to the next thing? And it's a beautiful thing that we're here to do. And that's the point of it. And that's why we're called to this journey. But yeah, like sometimes our programming is sneaky as shit. And yeah, like being a healer or being a facilitator or being a mentor or coach of any kind, it's like you said, it's so crucial that we are close to the work. And that's something that I had to really learn the hard way within the coaching space.
Yes. And when I was reading about your work in doing, the creatrix work that the movement, really, the mission that you're bringing to the world, when I
Mm.
saw the main areas that you include in it, I thought like, wow, that is such like a juicy experience. Like you have work on the nervous system, somatic alchemy, expressive art, spiritual integration, all sorts of, like I said, really juicy work to do. I think a lot it's pointing back, at least what I'm seeing in my work, here in Guam, is a lot is coming back to the nervous system and just educating people on the nervous system and nervous system regulation. So tell me a little bit about why the nervous system is a piece of your work, and yeah, just a little bit about that connection of all those things that are included in the creatrix work.
I mean, the nervous system is everything. The nervous system is like the human vessel. It's the human machine that we are living through as souls and as beings. And so, like, yeah, I feel like the nervous system work, it's a buzzword and it's a buzz theme in self-development for a reason, because it is important. What it actually means to heal your nervous system and to rewire your nervous system is to, number one, find safety in yourself, right? It's quite simply like we live in a world that can feel quite unsafe, right? There's a lot of stimulation and there's a lot of hard stuff, suffering that's happening in the world. We also come into our lives with a whole bunch of programming and trauma, and we all have pain that we've walked through. All of this contracts the nervous system. All of this causes so many of us to be living in a state of bracing, in a state of tension, in a state of holding so much energy and suppressing so much energy that we don't realize that we're stifling and suppressing. And I'm sure you talk about this with, your podcast community a lot, I'm sure, but that's what causes inflammation, psychosomatic conditions, illnesses, wreaking havoc, right, in your body and in the collective. So how can we bring the nervous system on an individual level from a place of dysregulation back to regulation, which just means safety, finding safety in the moment. And as we can find safety, that is then what allows us to feel anchored into our heart, into our bodies, into our souls. That's how we can feel clear in our minds. And when we can feel clear in our minds, we become an open vessel for life and for aliveness and for expansion. And so once we find safety, then we can expand. When we can expand, that's when we can talk about things like manifestation and co-creation and divine intervention, all of that good stuff. Like that gets to come in so clearly and effortlessly when we feel grounded in ourselves. And that's where the creatrix comes in, right? To consciously create your life, you have to feel anchored, grounded, and safe. Your inner child has to feel integrated. Your inner critic has to feel embraced. All parts has to be like anchored in order for us to really understand who we are as a whole and therefore bring more wholeness. And one more thing I want to add is with the work of and the mission. I love that you brought in movement. The movement of the creatrix. A big part of that is also like matrix work, right? Like we shift the collective and we shift collective consciousness through first and foremost ourselves. We shift it through our own individual consciousness. And so when we do the deep radical healing work, starts with nervous system, but then it goes into, expressive arts therapy is a beautiful way that we can learn to dance with ourselves again, learn to like have fun and play and make music and use our voices. Yeah, somatic artistry is something I teach where I combine creativity with like embodiment. How can we like creatively create from a place of the body and the heart? All of this gets to be so juicy and delicious and fun. But the more we can bring this energy into the world, the more we embody in our lives and we share it with those around us, our community, our families, our children, future generations. This is how we start to lighten the energy and open the energy in the collective. And so that's also a big part of what I do and why I do what I do and the objective underneath it all.
Yes. Beautiful. And I notice with a lot of the clients that I work with, I have worked with a number of creatives, whether they're artists, musicians, people that are starting a new project of some sort. And I really do notice that once we start to activate their wellness practices, rituals, that sense of safety, the rooted, the groundedness, the creative portal opens. And I even notice that for myself. Like I am most creative. I have my best ideas, biggest ideas when when I'm taking care of myself and I have that really like foundational sense of routine and ritual. And so that connection of like the creative portal and then also just that like sense of self and safety is huge. And so I would love to know just from your own creative practice, like when you feel the most lit up, when you feel the most like in flow with your creativity, what is typically happening, when you feel creatively like activated?
It's a good question. Well, first I want to touch on like what you said really beautifully, right? It's like that, I think you used the word balance, the feminine, the creative that becomes possible and that opens when we have that safety within. It's essentially a masculine and feminine union that's happening inside. So it's like, that's what it is. That's what all energy is. And that's what creates universal life force flow within us. But in terms of what happens in my world when I feel creatively activated, stuff just flows. Life just flows when we are in creation. I think that naturally, as humans, we are here to create. As souls, we're here to express. Like that's what all of us are actually put here in this body, in this human body with hands and with feet and with like a voice. We're all just here to create. And it's not just creating for a deadline or creating for work. It's creating in all forms of your life. It's like speech is a way that we create. Conversations is a way that we create. We're creating something right here between you and me. Cooking is a way that we create. Obviously, like writing and one of my favorite ways to create is dance. And when I allow myself to come into this energy of like life is a creation and I am creating all the time and everything is a sacred act of creation that I actually get to involve myself in and participate in, then I become quite literally like an active participant in my life and life is happening for me. And even just that energetic shift, which is really supported by creative acts that we do, right? So like that's where like having rituals of painting or writing or journaling or dancing or singing can be really helpful. It gets us into that creative juice, but creation is everything. And yeah, in terms of how it feels, it just allows things to flow. Like when you are in creation, but not from a place of masculine creation, which is about generation, which is just about like doing. When you are embodied in the being, as you said, underneath the doing, underneath the action, that creates a spark, a signal to the universe that then allows the universe to mirror back to you what you're putting out hundredfold. And so for me, it has felt just like, wow, the universe gets me and the universe supports me. And I have found that life just happens for me. Opportunities come in, relationships come in, money comes in when I am in my embodied creativity. It's kind of a wild thing because you're a vessel. That's what it is. It's like when you are embodied in your creation, you are a divine vessel. And when you're a divine vessel, well, then it just comes in because you're a vessel.
Yeah. It's a match. It's like,
It's just, yeah, it's so good. So that's what I feel.
Yeah, what you were explaining reminded me. So I host a wellness festival here on Guam. It's about like a 250 to 300 person festival. And with this past year, we did an art therapy session, and it was about that amount of people doing. The theme was metamorphosis for the whole event, and everyone did like an art therapy session with a guide that came out from California. I was just watching and like witnessing, observing and just seeing everyone leave that session. We also had sessions. We had a breathwork session. We had a yoga session. We had, a nervous system regulation session. But as people were leaving the art therapy session, it's that same thing. When a group of people leave a yoga class, there's kind of like that yoga high. Like same thing with breathwork. Everyone's like, "What happened?" The same thing was with art therapy. Like people were leaving like light and just like the energy was so like potent in that room from everyone that just was creating and like releasing and like sharing. And it really is such a powerful part of the wellness conversation and like, experience of like not a way to experience like within our body, just our whole body embodiment through expressing our creativity. And a lot of people had come up and told me like, I haven't done that. I haven't like drawn or painted or anything since I was a kid, right? So it's really activating that inner child. So yeah, I can totally imagine your work in art therapy just being a wild experience.
Yeah. And I feel like what you've touched on there is like really important to just like double click on. We as children know art before we know verbal language. Everyone, anyone probably knew how to pick up a stick on a beach and draw a circle, or like pick up a crayon and draw a line and understand and like feel color before you learned to string a bunch of words together into a sentence. You know to dance and sing as a little child before you know to get serious and use logic and use analysis. And so like the creative spirit is something that is so intrinsic to the human, and it's so important as a part of like our vital life force. And it's something that we have kind of, I don't know how, but through just, I would say it's what, I don't know. I was going to say it's Western society, but to be honest, I grew up in an Eastern society and it was the same. It's kind of been poo-pooed on. Like, it's like art is for children, right? You do your art with your children, literally with your kids. And that's like the only art that you touch as an adult, right? It's like, you go to art class. If you're bad at it, then you never touch it again. If you're good at it, then like maybe you become a starving artist. It's like, that's the narrative. And it couldn't be further from the truth. It's like, it's a huge part of wellness, like you said, and it's a huge part of creative life force. Like, how can we find ways to stimulate our creativity? And yeah, like I love art. I love visual art, but also I think everyone has their own expression that they feel really resonant with. And some people it's singing, and some people it's dancing, and some people it's painting, and some people it's drawing, and some people it's using clay, all sorts. But yeah, I love that. I love that you could notice that like art high or like that creative high in a similar way to like a yoga high or like a breathwork high. That's such a good way of putting it. I love that.
It totally is. Okay, I was going to dive into this as I was looking into your work, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ask her on the podcast. I know that for my community, when they hear the word spiral energetics, they're going to be like, what is that? So I know that that's part of what you offer. And so I would love to have you share, like, what is spinal energetics? How did you get into it? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I love that you're asking this because it's very present in my life right now. So, spinal energetics is not my modality. It is a modality that was created by an incredible mentor of mine called Dr. Sarah Jane Perry. She lives in Australia. She was a chiropractor by training for many years, but was also very interested in the Eastern modalities and how chi and prana and energy works in that system. So she had this like kind of what felt like contradictory systems of like the nervous system, energy, okay, the clinical model, and the energy body, right? Understanding chakras and the system there. So she developed spinal energetics also through COVID. COVID was in many ways, a blessing for many of us and to the world. I like to see it sometimes as. But yeah, she developed spinal energetics as this bridge between energetic release and emotional release with essentially like nervous system regulation and nervous system expansion. What we're doing in spinal, it's kind of gone viral. Like a lot of like, I don't know if you've ever seen like spinal energetics videos. It's a thing that's viral. My videos have also kind of gone viral. You see people, and it's also kind of been a version, not spinal energetics, but kind of a brother of spinal energetics, so to speak, was also featured on Goop. And so a lot of people.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, I'm pretty sure that was on the Goop.
Yeah. It's not spinal, but it's very similar.
Yes.
So similar movements, right? So when you see, if you've seen these videos before, someone's like kind of convulsing and like moving on the table. What's really happening is it's just their nervous system releasing. So Peter Levine talks a lot about this. He's researched into how wild animals, when faced with danger or threat, you go into survival mode, how mammals release is through shaking and tremoring and like a physical energetic release, right? I think of all the pent up energy. It's like release. So what we're doing in spinal is I'm like, how do I give the short version of this? When we experience trauma, emotion, stress, tension in the body, danger, threat that we don't have a chance to process, I'm sure all of you guys listening know this. It stores into your body, while the body keeps a score. But it doesn't just store into the body, it stores into the energetic body. And our energetic body is not just the physical body, we're made of energy, but it's also the entire space around us. And when we experience something, it lodges into the vagus nerve and it lodges into the nervous system, but it also lodges into a point in your energetic field. So it could lock into the emotional layer that's associated, let's say, with your heart chakra. And what we're doing in spinal is locating where that lock is, unwinding it so that it sends a signal to your body to release and to just complete its process. So when you see the movements and what people often say, like, is that an exorcism? I'm like, it's not an exorcism. What I'm really doing when you see my hand up here is I'm feeling into that knot in your field and I'm opening it up so that it allows you to just spontaneously let go of that emotion that's been trapped. And it's a really powerful and beautiful modality that I recommend everyone who feels drawn to it definitely explore at some point. It has really transformed the way that I understand energy and the body. And it's opened up a lot of emotions that I didn't realize I had suppressed and a lot of different tension points in the body for many years.
Wow. Are you able to do it virtually or do you recommend you have to do it in person?
No, you're able to do it virtually. I can give you a session sometime.
That could be fun. I'm so super interested.
I'll give you a session sometime. That'll be fun. In person and virtual work just as well. But obviously in person, it's like a hands-on experience. So it feels a little bit more immersive. Yeah.
Wow. Super interesting. Amazing. I know that people listening are probably going to be like, "What? How can I work with you? What can I do? How can I find you?" I saw that you're going to Bali as well. I host retreats in Bali, and I this is going to be my third year back to Bali for a retreat. And when I was looking at your page, I said, "Oh, she's going to Bali too, right around the same
I love
time."
that.
So
Wavelength,
tell
same
people a
wavelength.
little bit about like what are you creating now, right? What's kind of like coming out as like the your most aligned work, and yeah, what do you have create in the creatrix world right now?
It's so interesting because right now I feel like I'm in a period of simplification, of real simplification. I even actually just closed down a really big community space that I had running for about a year. So right now, my main focus is actually on one on one. I'm loving doing like deep private work in a long term container with clients where I can really hold them. I was finding that for, the 3 years, 4 years, I don't even know, that I've been running my practice, I was doing group programs for a long time. And while those are really fun, and I'm sure I will still do group programs in the future, it felt like um, sometimes it's like 3 months or like 2 months. It's just not enough time. It's like you want time to really sink into the juice of life, with a mentor or with a group. And so, anyway, right now I'm focusing on one on ones and I am just opening up that space even more. I'm just putting my energy into there. I'm putting my energy a lot into spinal as well, spinal energetics. So I do that in person in Vancouver as well as online. I'm also going to be opening up like group ceremonies monthly, and I'm very excited for probably in the new year. And yeah, I've got the Bali retreat that's happening in March. That would be so funny if we managed to see each other in Bali.
I love Bali. I will always go back to Bali.
Bali is just yeah, it's one of my favorite places ever. But yeah, otherwise, honestly, in a space of simplification, something feels like it's about to emerge but hasn't emerged quite yet. So keep your eyes peeled if you want to be a part of my community. But yeah, right now it's one-on-one, it's the retreat in Bali, and it's group ceremonies that I'll be doing, as well as my podcast and putting energy into that as well at the moment, which Livia is going to be on my podcast. So
Yes. Yes,
that
I'll
too.
definitely
Check it out.
drop in the show notes all the links, all the podcast swaps, all the things that you're working on, and just what you mentioned of like something that it's a really powerful feeling, and I feel this often in my business of like when I'm on the verge of something coming through, like a verge of a new idea or something, even in the simplification process, it's a really beautiful space to be, being like, I don't quite know what it is yet, but I know something's coming, and just like kind of sitting in that space of like creating space for it to come through. I'm currently in that stage right now, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not rushing to what the crystal clear idea is. I'm like just waiting for it to come through. So
There's
I
just
love
no rush.
that. Yeah,
The mystery
amazing.
and just the fertile void,
Yeah,
and it
I'm
and it
gonna
just
write that
feeds.
down. The fertile void.
Oh, yeah, it's
That's
like I
beautiful.
think about the fertile void all the time. Yeah, it's where the best
All
things are created.
right. Well, it was so great to connect with you. I'm so excited we got to do this. I'm excited to come on your podcast soon too. But
Oh,
I close all my conversations here with, just a simple question, which is what's lighting you up? It's really one of the reasons why I created this podcast, Illuminated Path, was to learn about, people's path, how they got there, the windy road, to share their light work, but then to also really tap into that sense of like, what is bringing light into your life right now. So I know you mentioned a couple of things, but what else right now is really, really lighting you up?
deep, deep connection, authentic connection. It sounds so simple and like almost maybe even abstract, but like really holding space for nourishing conversations, really being as present, working on my nervous system to be as present as I can be with the people in my life, being still in those moments of like intimacy and vulnerability with someone, finding safety in that for myself. That's also been something that I've had to work on for a very long time, fear of intimacy. But like that connection for me right now is feeling very juicy. And like I can feel that with not just my partner, right? It's like with friends and with strangers that I meet and with people from my dance class and the barista when I go get my Starbucks, just like moments of like, hey, I'm here. That's what's coming up. Like that's what makes me at the moment feel very lit up and connected to the world that we live in. Beautiful.
Thank you so
Mm.
much for your time this morning and for coming on. I'm so excited to share your work with the ENA community. And yeah, I'll drop all the details in the show notes for everyone to connect with Jade. So thank you again.
I'm so grateful I got to do this. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please rate and review, and don't forget to subscribe. Learn more at enowellnesscollective.com and connect with us on Instagram at Eno Wellness Collective.